My name is Sarah Thompson. I'm 27 years old and I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, a city that pulses with life but also keeps secrets in the shadows of its narrow streets. I work as a barista at a cafe in the French Quarter, where the smell of freshly brewed coffee mingles with the sound of jazz trumpets and the buzz of tourists. I'm an ordinary woman, with curly brown hair that insists on rebelling against the humidity, green eyes that James, my boyfriend, says shine when I'm happy, and a tendency to trust people too much. Maybe that's why I didn't notice right away what was happening. Maybe that's why it took me a while to feel the weight growing around me, like an invisible mist seeping into my life. It was an August night, around 10 p.m., and the sticky heat of New Orleans seemed to cling to everything: skin, clothes, asphalt. I was walking along St. Anne Street, coming back from a long shift at the cafe. The cast-iron lampposts cast twisted shadows on the sidewalks, and the sound of a saxophone echoed from some hidden bar. My apartment, a small but cozy place with exposed brick walls and a ceiling fan that creaked, was just a few blocks away. James was supposed to be there, probably sprawled on the couch, watching a Saints game or fiddling with his phone. He had been my safe harbor for 2 years, tall with an easy smile and a laugh that made me forget any problem. But that night, something was wrong. It wasn't something I could point to, but a feeling, like a tightness in my chest, a voice whispering that I needed to pay attention. I got home sweaty, my hair sticking to the back of my neck. James was on the couch, as I imagined, but with his phone in hand, laughing at something on the screen. "Hi, love," I said, tossing my bag on the table. He barely looked up. "Hey," he replied, still typing. I tried not to care, but curiosity won out. "Who is it?" I asked, forcing a light tone. "Oh, just Vanessa," he said, without looking at me. My stomach twisted. Vanessa, the friend from work. She was the manager at the bar where James worked as a bartender, always showing up with that fake smile and comments that seemed harmless, but made me feel small. "You look beautiful today, Sarah, but have you ever thought about wearing lighter makeup?" she once said, with a look that seemed to dissect me. I never liked her, but James insisted she was just a colleague. I tried to ignore the pang of jealousy. While washing the dishes, I saw his phone on the counter, forgotten. A notification flashed on the screen. "Have you felt him change yet?" V. My heart raced. It was Vanessa. What did she mean by change? Why was she talking about James, as if she knew something I didn't? My mind was spinning, but I said nothing. I didn't want to seem paranoid. Maybe it was just a silly conversation. Maybe I was imagining things. That night I couldn't sleep. It was 3 a.m. and the fan was buzzing, trying in vain to ease the heat. James was snoring beside me, but I was restless, tossing and turning in bed, with that sense of heaviness growing. Suddenly, I heard a noise. Outside, the shuffling of feet as if someone was on the building stairs. I got up, heart in my throat, and ran to the window. The street was empty, lit only by the dim light of the lampposts. But there was something in the air, a strong smell, like burnt herbs, mixed with something metallic I couldn't identify. I closed the curtain, trembling, and went back to bed, but sleep didn't come. It was as if something or someone was watching me, waiting for the right moment to act. The next morning, the sun rose hot at 7 a.m., and the streets already smelled of wet asphalt and coffee. I was exhausted, with deep, dark circles, but I needed to understand what was happening. As I walked to the cafe, I passed a shop window where I saw my reflection, pale, with an expression I didn't recognize. Was it fear, insecurity? I didn't know. I only knew that the premonition wouldn't go away. And deep down I felt that Vanessa had something to do with it. She was more than just a colleague. She was a danger I didn't yet understand. The sun was already high at 9 a.m., and the streets of the French Quarter buzzed with the sweet smell of beignets from Café du Monde and the sound of street vendors' carts. I walked quickly, clutching my bag to my chest, trying to shake off the exhaustion weighing on my shoulders. The sleepless night left my head foggy, but that premonition, that weight that seemed to cling to my skin like New Orleans humidity, gave me no respite. The smell of burnt herbs was still in my memory, as was Vanessa's message on James's phone. Have you felt him change yet? I needed answers, even if it hurt to find them. I decided to start at the local market, a spot in the French Quarter, where stalls sold everything: colorful candles, bone amulets, dried herbs wrapped in brown paper. It was a place I knew well, but I had never paid much attention to the more spiritual items. New Orleans has this energy, a mix of celebration and mystery, where voodoo and legends are as real as jazz. As I passed the stalls, an elderly lady with a bright blue scarf tied around her head and eyes that seemed to see beyond called to me. "Hey, dear. Come here," she said, her raspy voice carrying years of stories. I hesitated, but something pulled me toward her. I picked up a bundle of sage just to have something to do with my hands, and she looked at me intently. "You're carrying something heavy, aren't you?" she asked bluntly. My heart raced. How did she know? I told her, almost without meaning to, about the unease, the noise on the stairs, the strange smell. She frowned, took my hand and turned, my palm up, tracing the lines with a bony finger. "Someone wants what's yours. Envy, child. Be careful." I went cold, my throat dry. "Who?" I asked, but she just shook her head. "You'll know. But protect what you love, or you'll lose it." I left the market with the sage and a knot in my stomach. Her words echoed in my head as I walked home, the sun now blazing at 11 a.m., making the asphalt shimmer. When I reached the building, something on the doorstep made me freeze. It was a small red cloth bag, tied with black string, left there, as if on purpose. A strong smell, just like the night before, emanated from it: herbs, something sour and a hint of rust. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I had heard of gris-gris, common voodoo amulets, but this one didn't seem to bring luck. It felt wrong. Heart pounding, I threw it in the backyard trash, but the feeling of being watched only grew. In the afternoon, James was home, but even more distant. He refused my invitation to lunch at our favorite restaurant, a little place on Bourbon Street with mouth-watering gumbo. "I have to sort some things out with Vanessa," he said, not meeting my eyes. The mention of her made me clench my fists. "Sort out what?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He shrugged, mumbling something about work, and left. I was alone in the apartment, the fan buzzing, the heat suffocating me. The jealousy I tried to ignore turned into a burning anger in my chest. Vanessa wasn't just a colleague. She was meddling. In my life, in my love. That night, around 8 p.m., with the sky tinged orange and the air still warm, I decided to search through James's things. I hated myself for doing it, but the suspicion was stronger. While he showered, I grabbed the shirt he'd worn the day before, tossed in the hamper. That's when I saw it. A long, straight black hair caught on the collar. It wasn't mine. My brown curls looked nothing like that. The smell of herbs returned, stronger, as if soaked into the fabric. My stomach twisted. It was Vanessa. It had to be. I sat on the bed, the hair in my hand, my heart racing. The city outside was still alive, the sound of laughter, the clinking of glasses, the music that never stops. But inside me there was silence, a heavy silence broken only by fear. I knew I couldn't ignore the signs anymore. The red bag, the smell, the hair, the messages, it all pointed to something bigger, something I didn't fully understand but felt in my soul. Vanessa, or whatever she was doing, was a threat, and I needed to find out what it was before it was too late. Saturday dawned gray, with heavy clouds hanging over New Orleans at 7 a.m. The air was humid, promising rain, and the streets of the French Quarter seemed quieter, as if the city was holding its breath. I hadn't slept well again. The black hair, the red bag, the words of the market vendor, all spun in my head like a nightmare that refused to end. I had always been rational, but now I felt something bigger, something beyond logic. It was as if a shadow had settled over my life, and I needed to find out what it was before it swallowed everything I loved. I decided to seek help. I retrieved the gris-gris I had thrown in the trash, disgusted, but determined, and went to Treme, a vibrant neighborhood with colorful houses and an energy that blends history and mystery. Treme, located just north of the French Quarter, is one of the oldest neighborhoods in New Orleans, and a historic center of African American and Creole culture, known for its deep spiritual roots and traditions. My destination was the home of Mama Louise, a woman my co-worker at the cafe had mentioned once. "She understands things no one else can explain," she'd said. The walk was tense. The smell of wet asphalt and the sound of distant thunder made me quicken my pace. At 8 a.m., I arrived at a small purple house with an improvised altar on the porch. Melted candles, statues of saints, and a plate with coins. Mama Louise greeted me with a penetrating gaze. She was a woman in her 60s with grey braids and a patterned dress that seemed to carry stories. I sat in a wicker chair, gree-gree in hand, and told her everything: the premonition, the smell of herbs, the hair, Vanessa's messages. She listened in silence, took the red bag and opened it carefully. Inside were dried herbs, a small bone, and what looked like a torn photograph. "This is a separation spell," she said, her voice deep. "Done with strong intent. Whoever did this wants your man, Sarah, and won't stop until she gets him." My heart sank. "Vanessa?" I asked, almost in a whisper. Mama Louise nodded. "Probably. Tell me about her." I poured it all out. The fake smiles, the cutting remarks, the way she always seemed to be nearby like a shadow. I told her about James, about how distant he was, with eyes that didn't seem like his own. She lit a white candle, murmuring in Creole, and looked at me seriously. "This is black magic, child. It's not just envy, it's hatred. But you can fight back. The spirit protects those who have faith." She gave me an amulet, a necklace with a polished onyx stone, and taught me a cleansing ritual: salt, sage, and a prayer to ward off evil. "Do this tonight under the rain if it comes. Water washes away what doesn't belong." I left her house at 10 a.m., the amulet around my neck and a determination battling my fear. The sky was darker, and Treme felt alive with children playing and the sound of blues from a radio. But I could only think of Vanessa and how she could be so cruel. That night at 11 p.m., the rain fell, thin and steady, drumming on my apartment windows. James wasn't home. He said he needed to help at the bar, and the loneliness amplified my anxiety. In the building's backyard, under the faint glow of a street lamp, I performed the ritual. I spread salt in a circle, burned sage, and recited the prayer Mama Louise had taught me. The smell of smoke mixed with the rain, and I felt a strange energy, as if something was watching me. Suddenly, a muffled scream cut through the silence. I ran to the window, heart pounding, and saw a figure running in the rain. It was Vanessa. Even in the dim light, I recognized her long hair and the look of anger on her face. She saw me and stopped for a second, before disappearing around the corner. I went back inside, trembling, the amulet hot against my skin. Vanessa was Maledite, the force behind the gree-gree, the smell, the change in James. She wasn't just a rival, she was a spiritual threat. As the rain beat against the windows and the French Quarter slept outside, I knew I had to prepare myself. Whatever she was planning, I wasn't going to let her destroy my love. But deep down, a part of me trembled because I felt the battle was only just beginning. Sunday dawned with oppressive heat, the kind that makes the air feel solid. By 4 p.m., the streets of the French Quarter were crowded with tourists, their laughter and the clinking of glasses in stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. Since the night before, when I saw Vanessa running in the rain, my world seemed to be falling apart. The onyx amulet Mama Louise gave me weighed on my neck, a reminder of the battle I couldn't avoid. I knew Vanessa, or Maledite, as I now called her in my mind, was behind the gree-gree and the change in James. But knowing wasn't the same as understanding, and I needed to face her, even if fear made me tremble. I decided to go to the bar where she worked, a place called the Rusty Anchor, with exposed brick walls and neon lights flashing red and blue. The air was thick with the smell of beer and fried food, mixed with the sweat of customers crowding the counter. Vanessa was there, serving drinks with that fake smile I now recognized as a mask. My heart pounded as I approached. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. She raised an eyebrow, the smile not reaching her eyes. "About what, Sarah? Are you imagining things?" Her voice was sweet, but there was venom in it, something that made me clutch the amulet beneath my shirt. "I know what you did," I shot back, low enough for only her to hear. The red bag, the herbs, the hair. Stop trying to take James from me. For a second, her face changed. A flicker of anger, maybe fear, flashed in her eyes, but she laughed, tossing her black hair back. You're crazy, girl. Mind your own business. She turned away, but I saw her hands tremble as she grabbed a glass. I left the bar with my chest tight, knowing I had no proof, but also knowing she was guilty. Outside, the sun burned, and the French Quarter felt suffocating, as if the city was holding its breath with me. That night at 8 p.m., the worst happened. James came home with an expression I'd never seen, glassy, almost empty eyes. "Sarah, I think we need a break," he said, not looking at me. My throat closed. "What? Why?" I asked, my voice breaking. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. "I don't know, I just feel like I need space." It was as if he wasn't himself, as if something was controlling him. "It's her, isn't it? Vanessa?" I asked, tears streaming down my face. He denied it, but I wasn't convinced. When he left, slamming the door, I felt the ground disappear beneath me. Desperate, I ran to Mama Louise's house. It was 10 p.m., and a humid breeze blew through the streets of Tremé, carrying the scent of wet earth. She welcomed me without surprise, as if she knew I'd be back. I told her everything. The confrontation, James's words, the feeling that he was slipping away from me. Mama Louise lit black candles in a circle and took my hands. "Her work is strong, child, but it's not stronger than you. We're going to break this." She guided me through a more powerful ritual. I spread coarse salt, burned myrrh, and recited a prayer in Creole she taught me. As we chanted, I felt a heavy energy shift, as if the air itself resisted. Suddenly, one candle's flame shot up, and a chill ran down my spine. "It's done," Mama Louise said, "but now it's up to you. Stand firm." I left her house at midnight, the amulet hot against my skin and a new anger burning in my chest. It wasn't just fear anymore, it was a fierce determination to protect what was mine. As I walked through the dark streets, thunder echoed in the distance and the streetlights flickered. Vanessa may have started this, but I wasn't going to let her finish it. Still, part of me trembled, because I knew the final confrontation was coming, and it would be more than words. It was a battle of wills, of spirits, and I had to be ready. The week began with a dense fog enveloping New Orleans, as if the city were wrapped in secrets. It was Monday, 6 a.m., and the sky was grey, broken only by the distant song of a bird. I had barely slept, still shaken by what happened with James, and the ritual with Mama Louise. The onyx amulet seemed to pulse against my chest, a reminder of the strength I needed to find within myself. Despite the lingering fear, something had changed. The anger I felt the night before transformed into determination. Vanessa Maledit may have started this spiritual war, but I was ready to end it. Back at my apartment, the fan buzzed uselessly against the heat already building. James hadn't returned, and his absence felt like an open wound. I picked up my phone and saw messages from him, all vague, as if he were fighting something he didn't understand. "Sorry, Sarah, I don't know what's happening to me." My heart ached, but I knew it wasn't really him speaking, it was Vanessa's spell. I decided to follow Mama Louise's advice and reinforce my protection. At 7 a.m., in the weak morning, light, I spread coarse salt on the windows and doors, burned more sage, and prayed fervently, clutching the amulet. "May evil return to the one who sent it," I murmured, feeling a warm energy grow inside me. Around noon, the French Quarter was alive again, with tourists crowding the sidewalks and the smell of jambalaya in the air. I went to the cafe where I work, but my mind was elsewhere. During my break, a co-worker, Tanya, started a conversation. "You seem off, Sarah. What happened?" I gave her a brief version, enough not to sound crazy. She widened her eyes. "Have you ever heard what happens to those who mess with voodoo without respect? The evil always comes back, friend. Always." Her words echoed what Mama Louise had said, and a chill ran through me. Was the ritual already working? That night at 9 p.m. something changed. I was at home, the sky now clear and starry, when James knocked on the door. He looked lost, his eyes red, as if he hadn't slept in days. "Sarah, I don't know what's happening," he said. his voice trembling. Vanessa. She's acting strange. Today at the bar, she freaked out, yelled at everyone, said she was hearing voices. My heart raced. The spell was turning against her, just as Mama Louise had predicted. I sat James on the couch, touched his hand, and felt him slowly becoming the man I love again. You're going to be okay, I promised, more to myself than to him. Days later, on Wednesday at 10 a.m., the rumor spread through the French Quarter like wildfire. Vanessa had left the bar without explanation. Some said she was seen wandering the streets at night, talking to herself, her hair disheveled and her eyes wide. Others swore she tried to buy herbs at the market, but the vendors refused to serve her, as if they knew something. She's marked, Tanya said at the cafe, with a tone mixing pity and fear. I didn't know what to feel, relief, because James was coming back to me, or guilt, knowing the evil she planted was now consuming her. That afternoon, at 4 p.m., I returned to Mama Louise, the sun burning the streets of Tremé. She welcomed me with a wise smile. You did your part, child. The spirit took care of the rest. I asked if Vanessa would be okay, and she shook her head. Those who mess with evil without respect pay the price, but you stood firm. I left her house with a lighter heart, but also with a new scar. The spiritual battle was over, but the weight of what I'd lived through would stay with me forever. As I walked the streets with the sound of a trumpet in the distance, I felt James and I beginning to rebuild. But I knew I would never see the world the same way again. It was a quiet September night around 8 p.m., and New Orleans seemed to breathe a sigh of relief after weeks of tension. Sitting in my small apartment on St. Anne Street, with the fan buzzing and the window open to the soft sound of a distant saxophone, I held a cup of chamomile tea, trying to process everything I had lived through. At 27, I thought I understood the world, until I faced the shadows Vanessa, or Maladite, brought into my life. The onyx amulet still hung around my neck, now not as a weapon, but as a reminder of the strength I discovered within myself. The city outside pulsed with its unique energy, but inside me there was a new calm, mixed with scars that might never fade. Months had passed since Vanessa left the French Quarter, but rumors about her still echoed through the streets. Some said she was seen in Baton Rouge, pale and talking to herself. Others swore she tried to consult a voodoo priestess, but was turned away. The evil she sowed caught up with her, Mama Louise said the last time I saw her, with a tone that left no room for doubt. I felt no joy in that, but I couldn't deny the relief. James was back, not quite the same, but slowly becoming the man I love again. Last week at 6 p.m., as we walked along Bourbon Street, he took my hand and said, "I'm sorry for everything, Sarah. I wasn't myself." His words were a balm, but also a reminder of how close we came to losing everything. The French Quarter, with its cast-iron lampposts and the scent of beignets in the air, seemed different now. Sometimes, passing the market where I met the woman, with the blue scarf, I remembered her words, "Protect what you love or you'll lose it." She was right. Vanessa's envy, her hatred disguised as smiles, almost destroyed my love and my peace. But facing it, the gris-gris, the ritual, the confrontation taught me something greater. Evil exists, sometimes dressed as a friend, but good, when nurtured with faith and courage, is stronger. Mama Louise showed me that, and the amulet at my neck is proof. As I write, the sky is clear with stars dotting the horizon at 9 p.m. The August heat has given way to a gentle breeze, and the streets outside are full of laughter and music. But I carry a new perspective. Before, I saw New Orleans only as a city of parties and jazz. Now I see its layers, the hidden altars, whispered prayers, the forces that dance in the shadows. Vanessa introduced me to this world, even if through hatred, and in a way, I'm grateful. Not for her, but for the woman I became because of it. I learned that spiritual protection isn't just about amulets or rituals. It's about believing in yourself, even when fear screams louder. James and I are rebuilding one day at a time. Yesterday at 7 p.m., we had dinner at our favorite spot on Decatur Street, with warm lights and gumbo that soothes the soul. He laughed at one of my silly jokes, and for a moment, it was as if nothing had happened. But I know I carry marks, the distrust that sometimes surfaces, the habit of checking the thresholds. Still, I choose to move forward. The lesson is clear. Hatred can be powerful, but love, when protected, is unbeatable. And in a city like New Orleans, where the spiritual and the earthly intertwine, I've learned to honor both, keeping my heart open but my eyes always watchful.